this episode, we're going to take something that can feel intimidating at first, incident response, and make it practical and understandable by treating it like a set of prepared moves rather than a heroic, last-second scramble. When a security incident happens around payment data, the worst time to invent a plan is when everyone is stressed, systems are changing, and someone is asking for answers right now. A playbook is simply a written, reusable guide that helps you respond the same way every time, even if the people involved are tired or new. Escalation is the companion idea that answers a different question: who needs to know, when do they need to know, and how do we move the problem to the right level of authority fast? By the end, you should feel like incident response is not mysterious, and that a good playbook is mainly about clarity, timing, and making sure small problems do not quietly become big ones. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. To start, it helps to define what an incident is, because people often mix up incidents, events, and general problems. An event is anything notable that happens in a system, like a login, a blocked connection, or a file being changed, and events happen constantly. Most events are normal, some are unusual, and a few are dangerous, but an event by itself is just data about something that occurred. An incident is when we believe something has harmed or is actively harming confidentiality, integrity, or availability in a meaningful way, such as a stolen credential being used, malware touching a payment system, or unexpected access to cardholder data. A problem might be a system outage or misconfiguration that is not necessarily malicious, but it can still become an incident if it exposes sensitive data or disables a control at the wrong time. A playbook works best when it begins by helping a beginner reliably tell the difference, because the first decision, is this an incident, drives everything that follows, including urgency, communication, and evidence preservation. Next, it's important to connect this topic to the payment environment without turning it into an implementation lesson. The Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, PCI ISA, is built around the idea that environments handling cardholder data must protect it consistently, and incident response is the safety net when prevention fails or when something slips through. Even with strong controls, attackers can exploit a missed patch, a reused password, or a third-party weakness, and those moments are when response readiness matters. A practical playbook reduces the time between detection and containment, which is the window where damage grows, data spreads, and attackers dig deeper. It also reduces confusion, because confusion is a real risk factor, causing people to overwrite logs, restart servers, or announce the wrong thing publicly. When you build playbooks with escalation rules, you are designing for real human behavior, meaning you assume people will be under pressure, and you make the right action the easiest action. A common misconception is that incident response is only for huge, dramatic breaches that make the news, but most incidents start small and ambiguous. Many real cases begin as one strange login, one unexpected process, one report of a phishing email, or one missing laptop. If you wait until certainty arrives, you often wait too long, because attackers count on hesitation and disbelief. A good playbook teaches a team how to act when confidence is low, using careful steps that limit harm while preserving the ability to learn what happened. Another misconception is that playbooks are just paperwork for audits, but the best ones are used because they reduce chaos, not because someone asked for them. A third misconception is that a playbook should include every possible detail, but overly long playbooks fail during a crisis because no one can find the next step. What you want instead is a playbook that is short, clear, and designed around decisions, with enough detail to guide action but not so much that it becomes a novel. When you think about building a playbook, imagine it as a map that guides you through a confusing forest, but the map must work even if you cannot see far ahead. That means it needs a clear trigger, meaning the situation that causes someone to open the playbook in the first place. It needs an initial safety step that prevents accidental harm, like not powering off a system without guidance, not deleting suspicious files, and not sharing details widely before facts are known. It also needs a small set of first questions that shape the response, such as what system is involved, whether payment data might be affected, and whether the activity seems ongoing. From there, the playbook should lead to containment choices, like isolating a device or disabling a compromised account, in a way that matches risk without making the cure worse than the disease. Finally, it should include how to document actions as you go, because memory under stress is unreliable, and later you will need a timeline. Escalation is the second half of the design, and it's where many playbooks fail because people are uncomfortable with making a call that could wake someone up at night. Escalation is not about blame, and it is not about making a situation look bigger than it is. It is about getting the right authority and expertise involved before a situation grows. In a payment context, escalation is especially important because incidents may have contractual and reporting requirements, and because decisions like taking a payment system offline affect revenue and customer experience. A well-designed escalation path answers basic questions clearly. Who is the first responder? Who is the technical lead? Who can approve containment actions that disrupt service? And who communicates with legal, management, and external parties? It also sets time limits, like if you cannot contain within a certain window, you escalate, or if evidence suggests card data exposure, you escalate immediately. For beginners, the key lesson is that escalation is a safety mechanism that protects the organization from slow decision-making and hidden issues. An effective playbook separates roles from people because people change and schedules change, but roles stay consistent. You might have a first responder role that gathers facts and follows the playbook, a communications role that controls what gets said and to whom, and a decision authority role that approves high-impact actions. You might also have a forensics support role, even if it is external, that helps preserve evidence and reconstruct events, and a business owner role that understands the impact of downtime. When the playbook describes roles, it can say things like the incident commander coordinates, the technical lead executes containment, and the scribe records actions and times. This matters because during an incident, multiple people trying to do the same job causes duplicated work and mistakes, while no one doing a certain job means important actions are missed. By defining roles clearly, you reduce arguments like who is supposed to call whom, or who is allowed to touch the system. Beginners often underestimate how much time is lost in these role conflicts, so role clarity is one of the most powerful parts of a playbook. Another major idea is deciding what kinds of incidents you need playbooks for, because you cannot write one for every possibility, and you should not. Instead, you pick a set of common, high-risk scenarios and create playbooks around them, such as suspected malware on a workstation with access to payment systems, suspicious activity on a server in the cardholder data environment, lost or stolen device that could contain sensitive data, credential compromise for an administrator account, or a third-party alert about exposure. Each playbook should share a common structure, so users learn a consistent pattern, but each should also include scenario-specific checks and containment guidance. The goal is to create predictable response muscles, where people know how to start, how to ask for help, and how to avoid actions that destroy evidence. For a beginner listener, the main takeaway is that it is better to have a few playbooks that are actually usable than a binder of playbooks no one trusts. Consistency across playbooks is what makes response fast under pressure. When writing the steps, one of the best techniques is to focus on decision points rather than long sequences of tasks. A decision point might be whether the affected system is in scope for PCI ISA controls, whether payment data could be involved, or whether the attacker is still active. Another decision point might be whether you can isolate the system without breaking critical business operations, or whether you need approval for downtime. Playbooks that are mostly decisions help people avoid paralysis, because they turn uncertainty into questions with actions attached. For example, if there is evidence of compromised credentials, the playbook can guide you to disable the account, reset credentials through a controlled process, and check for signs of additional accounts being created without listing every technical detail. If there is potential data exposure, the playbook can trigger escalation to the incident commander and communications role and prevent informal messaging. The exact technical steps may differ by environment, but the decision points are broadly stable, which is why they make a playbook durable. A playbook also has to handle communications carefully, because what gets said during an incident can create secondary damage. Beginners sometimes think communication is just sending updates, but it is more like steering a ship in a storm because rumors spread fast and partial facts can mislead people into wrong actions. A good playbook defines internal communication channels, such as who receives updates, how often, and what information is safe to share early. It also defines who is not allowed to speak externally, because uncoordinated statements can conflict with legal obligations or create panic. In a payment incident, you may also need to coordinate with payment brands, acquiring banks, or service providers, but the playbook should focus on the principle. Communications should be controlled, accurate, and timely. It should encourage facts over guesses, and it should include a simple rule that if you do not know, you say you do not know yet. That kind of discipline protects both the investigation and the organization's credibility. Escalation triggers should be written as clear thresholds, not vague feelings, because feelings vary widely across people. A threshold might be any suspected compromise of a system that stores, processes, or transmits cardholder data, any sign of unauthorized access to administrative accounts, or any malware detection on a system connected to the cardholder data environment. Another threshold might be repeated failed login attempts from unusual locations, discovery of new user accounts created without approval, or unexpected changes to payment page content that could suggest tampering. You can also define time-based triggers, such as if you cannot determine scope within a set period, you escalate, or if containment fails on the first attempt, you escalate. Clear triggers reduce the fear of being wrong, because the playbook becomes the authority, not the individual. For beginners, this is an important emotional lesson. Escalation is not a personal judgment. It is a procedure you follow. When escalation is objective, it becomes easier to do consistently. Testing and maintenance are what make a playbook real, because an untested playbook is just a guess written down. Testing does not have to be complicated or technical, and it should not require anyone to type commands. It can be a discussion-based walkthrough where you pretend an incident happened and see if the playbook guides you to the right decisions. During these practice sessions, you often discover that contact information is outdated, role ownership is unclear, or steps assume knowledge no one has. You also discover that certain steps are too long, or that the playbook does not address common questions like when to take a system offline or how to document actions. A mature program treats playbooks as living documents, updated after real incidents, after near misses, and after environment changes like new service providers or new payment workflows. The goal is continuous improvement, not perfection on day one, because payment environments evolve and attackers adapt. Regular review turns response from a one-time project into a stable capability. Documentation during an incident is a theme that belongs inside incident response playbooks because it is easy to forget and expensive to lose. When people act quickly, they often do not record times, decisions, or actions, but later those details matter for understanding what happened, proving what was done, and meeting obligations. A good playbook encourages a simple habit. Record what was observed, when it was observed, what action was taken, who took it, and what changed afterward. That habit produces a timeline, and timelines are how you separate cause from coincidence. Documentation also helps the team avoid repeating actions or undoing containment accidentally, because everyone can see what has already been tried. For a beginner, it's helpful to think of documentation as the story of the incident written in real time, not a report you write days later. When documentation is built into the playbook, it becomes part of the response rather than an afterthought. Finally, it helps to understand what a playbook is not, because that keeps it focused and usable. It is not a technical manual filled with configuration instructions, because those change and they distract from decisions. It is not a policy document full of broad statements like respond quickly and follow best practices, because broad statements do not tell you what to do next. It is also not a guarantee that nothing bad will happen, because incident response is about reducing harm and recovering well, not eliminating risk entirely. A strong playbook accepts that uncertainty will exist and designs around it, using escalation, role clarity, and decision points to keep people moving. It also respects that organizations have different sizes and structures, so it describes principles and responsibilities rather than assuming a large security team is always available. When beginners grasp these boundaries, They stop expecting the playbook to do everything and start using it as a reliable guide. As we wrap up, the core idea to hold on to is that an incident response and escalation playbook is a practical tool for turning panic into purposeful action, especially when payment data and trust are on the line. A good playbook defines what counts as an incident, tells you how to start safely, and guides you through decisions that lead to containment, investigation, and recovery without causing avoidable damage. Escalation rules make sure the right people get involved early, using clear triggers so no one has to guess whether a situation is serious enough to report. Role clarity prevents confusion, controlled communication protects the investigation, and built-in documentation creates the timeline you need to learn and prove what happened. The most important mindset shift is realizing that playbooks are not paperwork. They are preparedness, and preparedness is what lets a team respond confidently even when the situation is messy.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.